Good evening and a very warm welcome to you on this Parentune workshop. My name is Nidhi and I'm excited to host this workshop for you today. With our expert child psychologist Kiran Tevtiya, we will learn about how to do screen moderation for a child in this workshop. A very warm welcome to you, Kiran, and looking forward for an insightful workshop to learn ways and steps to moderate screen time, its impact on children, what really causes it, and what can we as parents do to tackle this.
Thank you, Nidhi. And I also would like to thank Parentune for taking up this topic. It's an important topic and it's relevant for all the age groups of children. So, thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Kiran. So, talking about this topic, the first thing that really comes into my mind is why is it important for parents to moderate a child's screen time?
Right. Um, See, Nidhi, how it works is that the way an adult sees the screen time for entertainment, right? Now, how we see it is more of a downtime where we have worked hard or we just need to break the monotony. So we sit down, we close our mind, and we are using it as an entertainment. For children, it doesn't work that ways. For children, because their brain is so plastic, and because they are in the process of learning, they are in the process of acquiring more and more knowledge. Okay, they are in the process of observing things very minutely. For children, even screens become a source of information, learning. And that's where the challenge happens, that whether it is in terms of an alternative source of learning, how comfortable we are to open up that avenue, and the longer the child is out there, the longer is the effect. And because the screens have been designed in a manner to have the eyes glued for as long as possible, and children, as we all should definitely know, are still biologically developing their sense of self control and their sense of regulation. Okay, so their chances of sticking to it and to seeing the screen time as a survival for boredom is very high as compared to an adult. So that's why it's very important, both from stickiness, the chances of genuinely seeing the screen time as a survival, for boredom, for uncomfortable information, for social connect, as well as an alternative source of information. So that's why it's important to moderate the screen time for children.
Right. Thank you, Kiran. So, on to the same lines, how can excess screen time really affect the child's health, be it mental or physical?
Right. See, to truly understand, right, that how the screen time is going to impact, we also have to understand what is it that the children of different age group needs to achieve. What are the milestones that they need to achieve? What are the cognitive and socio emotional problems that the child needs to solve, right? So when we see that the time which the child needs to be spending on with the real world, solving the problems, getting more and more complication of social, which are social, interactive, conflicting in nature, when the child gets robbed of those opportunities, then there is a price to pay. The more the child is sitting in front of the screens, the less is the opportunity child gets in those areas. And when you, Nidhi, talk about physical, then of course the sedentary life is going to affect the development of the child, because we have to understand, as the child's body is growing, there is a need for physical exertion for the child as well. WHO recommends 2 hours of physical exertion the child needs to be doing. So in all those sectors, whether it is physical, whether it is cognitive growth, whether it is socio emotional in nature, it gets impacted.
Thank you, Kiran. So, like you mentioned about children's brain being plastic. So, apart from that, and children using gadgets as a source of boredom, also to get out of that boredom. So, what do you think are the reasons, apart from this, behind children being addicted to gadgets all the time, and lately even more post this COVID?
Yeah. So there is a lot of tricky things here happening. When the lockdown started, there was a need to allow the children to have the screens, even in the families who had not otherwise introduced screens to the children. And the need arose because of the academic concerns, because of keeping the schooling going for the children, right? Now, but the challenge that happened in many households when I get parents across all the age groups, Nidhi, what I hear is that when we started as a need, but then we didn't know where to stop. We didn't know how much to stop. Then it became more like the way it happens in real world, that I have studied a lot. Okay, suppose in the real world the child has spent X amount of time in studying the books. So I've studied a lot and now I need my free time. Okay, and because the child has gotten access to screen, and children often see their their growth more as how many privileges are they allowed. So they start seeing screens as now they are allowed to an activity. And then when they have spent the time in online schooling, then they also start looking the same devices for entertainment. And then slowly how it starts working, that the time that they're spending in learning decreases and the time that they're spending in entertainment starts increasing and creeping in, because we are banking upon the child's ability to filter and to self-regulate. So then what happens, and what I see happening, Nidhi, is that even in the places where lockdown rules have been reduced a bit, where it is allowed for the children in the interim to go down, there was a big chunk of time when it was allowed. When recently it got curbed. So there was a sect of children who were not comfortable to go down. They would say, I'm finding it very boring to go down. It's not stimulating at all. See, when we talk about plasticity of the brain, we also have to understand that the children's brain nerve cells are connecting so fast, the areas that they're using and the areas that they are not using starts getting pruned up. It's like efficient, right? Like in household, the things that you regularly need, you keep them right in front of your reach. And the things that you do not regularly need, either you keep it somewhere in the back, if you have to relate from that point of view, or you probably discard it. So that's how the brain works as well. So the skills that the child is not using, whether it is ability to solve social conflicts, whether it is to solve the problem that how do I make my friends, they're all very slow process, and the child only has X amount of control on that. So the child starts feeling a sense of loss of control in those areas and starts feeling the brain, because the brain is designed to seek pleasure, starts protesting that why are you? It's like the muscles which were not used. It's like when you start going to, in the layman, if you have to see, when you newly start going to gym, your body starts complaining, why are you using me? So same thing, the child starts seeing that I am not getting the pleasure from this activity. I am used to getting pleasure from the screen, so I want to go back there. So even when the lockdown started decreasing, that's where, if you have to call it as addiction, but I generally call it as the child starts associating, the brain truly starts associating that this is my go-to to handle boredom, to handle sadness, to handle a sense of accomplishment. I did this much, so now you owe me. The child starts truly believing that now I have earned my screen time. When on the contrary, the child was already on the screen time for the schooling, and the further screen time actually adds on to the sedentary lifestyle of the child. So that's where this addiction starts setting in. And the child, the easy source of pleasure, the easy source of reward, the quick sense of reward, the sense. But then there are other challenges out here, the tolerance, which starts developing. So what the pleasure that the child start seeing, the child could get it in 15 minutes or half an hour or 1 hour of entertainment. Because the tolerance in the brain is happening, the child doesn't get that same sense of reward. So the child ends up seeking out more, that maybe I need to do it more. maybe I need to do it for a few hours more to actually get that sense of reward. So you see, it becomes like a cycle which the child finds it very difficult to come out from, and that is where the parents help can parents support and parents parental control can truly help the child.
Right. So, Kiran, talking about parenting controls and onto the same lines that it becomes their go-to and pleasure, it's very important to still kind of moderate it. So,
Yeah.
how can we as parents explain screen time limits to our children?
Yeah, Nidhi, that is so well said. One, of course, strategy is that shall we? And one question that can come in a parent's mind that is it a binary? That is, I should just stop my child from any kind of screen-based entertainment, right? One question that can come. However, I think moderation is much better because finally the child also, we really want that while the child is in the safety of the household and while the child is still connected with the adults in the household, child also learns how to be responsible with the devices. Child learns how to self drive himself or herself, to have a discipline around it. And when the child learns it, what we are doing is the way healthy lifestyle, the way healthy eating, right? The way healthy social practices are taught or the child learns from interaction with adults. We are also inculcating a healthy device management with the child. So, yes, moderation really helps the child, where the parent are working collaboratively with the child in terms of helping the child to balance the seeking out of pleasure using entertainment, as well as guiding the child to use other avenues as well, which is not so fast and which are a little passive and slow paced in nature. That builds frustration tolerance in the child, that builds waiting threshold in the child. So I hope this answers and helps the parents. And moderation is much important. However, there's a little tricky thing because we are talking about all the age groups here. The tricky is if the screen time for entertainment is replacing some of the skills that the child needs to achieve or learn or develop at that particular age, if it is replacing that, then it is going to adversely affect the child. So when I say that, suppose a 2 years of child or 3 years of child or 1 year old child needs to learn verbal communication in an interactive manner. The only way the children do it is when they interact face to face with their caregiver or with the peers. So if the child is on screens as a replacement for that, it is going to affect their developmental milestones. So one is moderation, the other is also truly going by the needs of the child as well. Those needs are not just eating, are not just sleeping and love of the parent. They're also the true developmental needs where the child needs to get complex interaction with the parents and complex problem solving in real life. So please see to it while you are doing the moderation that it's not replacing the skills that the child needs to develop as well. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Kiran. So, also apart from that, apart from what you shared, uh, how to really regulate and moderate screen time? I mean, apart from working collaboratively and explaining them things, apart from that, can you talk about some tips and techniques?
Right. So here, Nidhi, I would, because I'm also talking about the sensitivity as a parent, that hope the screen time is not taking away the opportunity that the child needs to have to build the skills, age appropriate skills. So that's why I would want to divide it a bit into the early childhood and the middle and the late childhood. So in the first 5 years, the child needs to learn to be able to relish, okay, and experiment with different types of food items. So when we start using screen time as a means to fast forward the eating of the child, we are replacing what the child needs to develop. We are replacing that opportunity. The child doesn't get an opportunity to develop it. Child doesn't get an opportunity to experiment. Child doesn't get an opportunity to listen to his or her own body signals that I am full now, and doesn't get an opportunity to explore the food with all the senses, the hand squashing, a little bit taking in the mouth, a little bit painting the face, a little bit dropping. The child gets robbed of that experience, right? So then it is important that we are seeing that we are not using screen as an aid or replacement for those skills. So you will have to work. And those are the moments which I want to sensitize the parents. Those are the moments of high interaction with the child as well. Just imagine how many no's you will have to tell to a young child, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old child, when you are in the kitchen and you are trying to fix something and the child keeps climbing up on the platform and reaching out to the gas. How many no's you have to say? So it becomes a natural platform to communicate with the child. So verbal communication and non-verbal, understanding the non-verbal cues of the adult is another learning which young children need to do. So again, there it is important that we are not using it as a replacement for that interaction. We are not using it as, you know what, if I give the screen to the child wouldn't move around. So it becomes easier because the child needs to have those conflicts with the parents. That is the way where, that is the only time where the communication really increases. Just imagine if the child is just sitting with the blocks, making the tiles nicely, not troubling anyone. How many words are we speaking to the child? It is only when there is conflict that we have to use so many words. So those become such a fertile ground for communication. So young children, for communication, building in an interactive manner, eating skills, sleeping, that's another thing. So if we use that, all right, let's have screen time till the time the child is really very tired. It's again tough. The child doesn't learn to listen to the cues of his or her own body and to quieten the mind and to develop some techniques, either rocking the body or doing something in a repetitive manner, or moving around in the room, sleeping over the toys. The child gets robbed away of the opportunity to learn to help himself or herself to learn to sleep. So that's another area where I would say that we need to be sensitive about moderating and not using screens as an aid or shortcuts, right? For middle-aged children, which I generally say like 6 years to 10 or 11 years, they need to get unsupervised, unstructured opportunity to play. They need those peers, social connect with their peers. So when the more the child is on the devices, right, the tougher it gets, because as I said, that the quick reward sense. So then my suggestion is that how do you moderate is when there are clear rules in the house. Okay, now this is generic and it is across, at least it starts from the middle age. It starts from 6 years, 7 years, and all the way till the older childhood. If there are clear rules, and as an adult, we are also showing the adherence to those rules of screen-free zones or screen-free times. It could be time which is closer to the sleep. It could be time around meal times. It could be time around the evening times when the child is supposed to socially interact. It could be time around noon time when the child, ideally, depending on the age of the child, is supposed to take a nap. So if the child is getting stimulated at the time, you can imagine that the child will be sleep deprived. Given a chance, the child might have instead gone to sleep, would have listened to the body and gone to sleep. So the child gets deprived because of the screen stimulation, light. So then it replaces the time. So moderating from that point of view, firstly understanding based on the age of the child, what is the needs of the child, and then creating rules around the house which give respect to those needs. Then it is all right. Where, like, for example, based on the age, there are certain timing regulations also. How much exposure can we give to the child per day approximately? There are ideal suggestions around that by the pediatrics, American Association of Pediatrics as well. So it is important to be sensitive about it. So I really hope the high level, when I say moderation, high level, based on the age of your child, please see what are the needs and accordingly devise the rules. If for older children they need to socially connect with their friends and they're using devices for that, then what role a parent plays is in terms of sensitizing the child, what are the advantages and disadvantages of this medium of social connect. So even when you notice that, okay, the child is having some tough talks with the friends in a WhatsApp group, it is also helpful when the parent sensitizes that how the textual medium isn't the best medium to start discussing conflicting topics, right? So these are good moments. A lot of time we start thinking that the children know much more about the technology, and as a parent, we do not know so much, so probably I'm not in a good place to advise a child what the child should do or should not do. But we also have to understand that the rules which work in real life, right? For example, you wouldn't regularly have a friend coming to your place every day at 12 o'clock in the night. So if that is general common sense in real world, if you truly confidently, without even thinking that I don't understand devices so much, as my child is so smart in it, even if it is an older child, if you truly extend those rules in real life or virtual life as well, where you say, you know what, this is not the time to connect with the friends, you need to take a break. Older children often don't understand that, okay, I need to take a break, and this definitely, it increases their sense of loneliness, it increases their sense of disconnect. Even if the child thinks that I am connecting, they also need a break from that social connect. So that is where the parent role can come in based on the age of the child. So I really hope, in a generic manner, based on what is the age of your child, it helps you.
Thank you so much, Kiran. So also, when we talk about moderation, there's a difference between screen usage and screen addiction. So could you help us understand the signs of screen addiction?
See, how as a parent you start getting worried, right? Or start truly believing that your child is getting addicted, and it's not just a long-term use, is where you start noticing. First thing is that the child is using screens as a go-to whenever the child is facing any kind of uncomfortable emotions. Okay, whether it is the child is sad, the child is angry, the child is bored, if that becomes a go-to each time on a regular basis, and if the child does not get a device, the child is actually getting very panicked. Okay, and the child is getting very restless. Like there was a particular case of about 15, 16 years of child where the internet was down for a day and the child was completely panicky. The child was just constantly behind the father, asking that, can you find some other ways that I can get the internet back? So you would understand that when the child is finding it difficult to have a device free time, when the child is finding it difficult to take the rules of, while eating, the child just cannot tear himself or herself off on a regular basis, not just one off day, you will start noticing. And when the child is finding it difficult to sleep, the child says, I just, and for days, I'm not talking about 1 or 2 days, for days, when the child says, I just am not feeling sleepy till 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. So then you should start truly getting a little worried that it is affecting the child. When the child starts pushing away the food time, starts saying that, okay, no, I'm not hungry, I start skipping the meals, multiple meals. So you should start getting worried that yes, some help and support is required for the child to handle the tearing away from the device. So I really hope that helps the parents.
Right. So, like you mentioned about that, some help is definitely required. So, can you emphasize upon the techniques that can be used by parents for their children to help them with de addiction?
Right. Now it differs, Nidhi, from age to age, right? So in case if it's a little younger child, say it's about 5 years, 6 years of child, and you notice that the child is secretively taking mother's phone, is taking father's phone, and has, is just sitting somewhere and doing it. And when you try to take away from the child is having meltdown, is having like an hours or 45 minutes, half an hour or meltdown on a regular basis, not one off day. Okay, so then it is important where, as a parent, if I have to think about some techniques, if some rules are there where you first put the rules on the devices, where you lock the devices, you start putting in that the devices are for the father and mother, where it is not handheld devices. I'm talking about younger children. It's not so easy. They're just a handheld devices. Even if you have to give some supervised access to the child, it should be on a wider screen, which becomes easier for the child to tear off, right? So that is some of the techniques that you can use. That is, it should not be the first thing in the morning that the child goes to. It is not the smaller screens which you are giving to the child. It should be the bigger screen. It should be directed by the parents, by the routine of the child, that, okay, this is the time that you're allowed to do. So the child clearly knows and is communicated that the parent needs to give permission, right? There is no sneaking around happening. And you put some locks. So whether even in the computer, if you put some user provisioning, and you put some, there are timings as well where you can put some locking timing. So you need to understand those cues as well. So you need to understand how the devices work, and you need to understand how do you help your child. So that's for the younger children where the rules are made. But you have to understand that even for a younger children, sometimes it can take about 2 to 3 weeks of time for the child to truly get that confidence and start putting the devices as an entertainment as the back burner. Till then, till the time, it is quite possible that the child can have tantrums, the child can have those, whatever the strategies or coping mechanism the child has built in. So you've got to be a little patient as well. And if it has become really overwhelming, I wouldn't say using any kind of corporal punishments. That doesn't help the children of any age. So please do not think of that, okay, if I hit the child, or I hide the devices. You can you can tell the child that, okay, I'm keeping this the devices away, and this is not for you. Tell the child and do it. Do not do it like in the back, or you start stopping yourself from using the devices even when you have to genuinely use it. Because like I said before, for the child to learn moderation of usage and learn to take a no, the devices need to be around the child as well, right? Where the child exercises it, all right. So you can artificially create an environment where you are in pain and you are not accessing whenever you need the devices. Confidently use it and be ready to say a no to the child. For middle age and for older children, I would say that, talking to the child, and speaking to the child, putting the rules in a manner where you say what is stopping you, sensitize the child that I am worried for that you need to really go to meet your friends also. And I sometimes, Nidhi, I notice that we always get worried only if it affects the academics. We only get worried when we start noticing the child is not, during the online classes, the child is sneaking in to watch the videos. I would suggest that we should also get worried when the child is not doing self-care activities. I would suggest that you should also get worried if the child is not socializing in a physical manner with his or her friends. You should also get worried when the child is not helping in age-appropriate chores in the house. So you need to, know that when should you. So have some self-care chores to the child, make it conditional, make the day as slot wise, that this is the morning slot, this is the afternoon slot, this is the evening slot. And in every slot, you can have certain activities which are allowed. And let the child be flexible enough to decide what is the sequence of those activities. So put a discipline that in the first slot, ideally, there should not be any entertainment, because that is when the screen-based entertainment, because that is when the mind is fresh. Rest anything that the child does, whether the child is playing, whether the child is reading storybooks, everywhere it's a learning opportunity for the child. You should truly believe it. So it isn't that you may start thinking that, okay, in the morning slot he's not studying or she's not studying, so might as well go to screens for entertainment. Everything is learning opportunity for the child. So let the child indulge in anything else, whether it is even the child is taking half an hour to take a bath. So that is what I would suggest. And in the nighttime, another technique, in the nighttime, have a very clear rule of turning off the lights. Sometimes, Nidhi, I see that as a parent, we see that the child will only sleep when the parents go to sleep. You should truly believe that based on what is the need of the child, how many hours the child needs a night time, you can always, as a parent, have a cutoff of sleeping different for the child than what is it for the parents. Parents can have different timings based on what are their roles and responsibilities, and whether professional or personal, right? So have a clear, strict sleeping time. Have Try to have as much as possible the meals time together, at least one of the meals, dinner time, and because that becomes a connect time as well. So here, when I say moderation and de-addiction, I would also say that don't just concentrate on nose, putting the nose, then also concentrate on building your connection with the child. So when the child is engaging with some activity, whatever, whether it is reading the storybook, whether it is playing, creating something, just sit with the child and just observe what the child is doing and look for appreciation out there. Truly see what the child is doing instead of feeling bad about what the child is not doing. So if I have to give you an example, how do we end up feeling bad that, okay, you are right now spending so much of time in play doing the cube, and we start saying, did you finish your maths homework? So you truly see what the child is doing, spend some time, connect time with the child. And especially this is more important for working parents who are professionally working. If you have less time in your hand to be with the child, the best technique, Nidhi, I would say, is that do not use the time only to focus on academics. Because then, when there is no connect, right, when there is no mutual understanding of each other, slowly as the child ages, it becomes very difficult for the child to listen to your instructions, truly listen to your instructions, right? Then it becomes more, the pushbacks start increasing because there is no connect. So we need to nurture that connection. That also means that wherever there are conflicts, you will have to weigh how much price am I ready to pay here. So a lot of times, Nidhi, as a parent, we may think that I have to ensure that my child stops the screen time right now itself, even if that means to get into fist fight with the child. So it's important not to get into any kind of physical. If the child is pushing back, think of some other ways which, as a parent, you can work out. If not at that time, maybe at the time when you are calmer and the child is calmer. Truly believe that as a parent, you have a lot of influence on the child. Use it in a positive manner. So I really hope these different age groups, it's easier for the parents to put in.
Right. It indeed is. It helps us to understand it a lot better. So, a lot of times, like the techniques that you've spoken about for de-addiction, as parents, maybe we cannot do that. So, can you also help us understand that when should a parent seek professional help, or if there are some warning signs to help them understand it better, that okay, now I need to seek an expert and it's not under my control.
Right. Um, See, if you see yourself as a mother or as a father, if you see that you have started losing your sleep, right, continuously, right, for days, and you start noticing that your conflicts are rather increasing instead of connect, and where the sensitization and collaboration is increasing. So if you start noticing that where the conflicts are rather increasing, because the more the conflicts, more the disconnect, more are the chances that either you will give up on those expectations, you'll start saying, all right, so let the child do whatever he or she is doing and bear the consequences of it. Now the biggest challenge with that approach is that the way the screens are designed, it can be the stakes can be really high, and leaving it to the child may not able to help himself or herself at all. So dropping the expectations, if you ask me, Nidhi, is a very unfortunate thing that we do. So if you find yourself at the verge of dropping the expectations that probably I should not even regulate the screen time of my child, let my child feel the pain of sleeping late, getting up early, maybe the child will realize it one day. If you see yourself at that verge, I would say please do reach out for help, because your child will gain a lot by engaging into things which are more helpful to the child's overall physical and cognitive needs and social emotional needs. So yeah, that's my answer. If you notice yourself in more conflicts, at the verge of giving up, start working out, right? And if you see yourself losing your sleep over it, please reach out to the help, no matter
Right.
what is the age of the child.
Right. So, on the same lines, Venoline, who has a 5-year-old child and is from Chennai, says, my son is 5 years old, and post lockdown, my son has become even more addicted to TV and computer. He spends hours together before the screen, and I'm really worried about his eyes. I also find a difference in his behavior off late. He does whatever he sees on the screen. How can I reduce his screen time? And also, please suggest that how can I keep him occupied throughout the day without the screen?
All right. Yeah, so it's wonderful, well, O'Neill, well, you have asked both the questions, right? You have asked that how do I reduce the exposure? Now, when I reduce the exposure, that means the child has more time in hand. And when the child has more time in hand, how do I fill in that time? So, first thing that I want to put in out there is that unless, right, you as a parent or all the adults, right, unless the adults are engaged into a thing which needs very high on concentration work, right, whether it is some professional meeting, whether it is you are taking care of some sick person where you can simply not allow the child in. So unless you're doing something very high concentration work where it can be hazardous or you know not desirable for the child to be with you, I would suggest that do not use the screen time to fill in the time of the child. It's not required, because children who are above 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, and who are verbally expressive, right, they can connect and can actually get advantage from whatever activity you're doing. So whether you are at home, in the room, living room doing some activity, whether you're in the bedroom doing some activity, whether you're in the kitchen doing some activity, whether you are stepping out of the house, okay, I would suggest always let the child join you if the child so desires. Give option to the child. Whether you're folding the clothes and the child says that, oh, mom, I'm getting bored. Oh, you're getting bored? I have 4 of your t-shirts. Why don't you just fold it and put it in your cupboard? What is the worst that will happen with that? The worst that will happen with that is either the child will participate, right, will be interested in participating in that activity, or the child will say, it's so boring, I don't want to do that. Either ways, you give him an option and he rejected. And when the child gets bored is when the child gets creative. Right? Truly believe that. Is the time when the child starts making connection with all the knowledge, all the information the child is getting from all the sources. You start noticing when the child is not doing anything, suddenly the child will come to you and will ask you some question like why it is like that. Where is that why question coming from? That why question is coming because the child had a downtime. Child was what the child will label as getting bored, which sometimes as an adult we label as sitting lonely, sitting alone, doing nothing, right? Those are the labels that we use, is when the child is connecting the dots. So Always use these moments when it seems that the child is getting bored as a moment of connect. A child above 5 years is capable of participating even when you are doing some cutting of vegetables. You can always give one particular thing to the child to also participate in. Child learns to connect with the adult, child learns interactivity, right? And even any kind of activity with the child, whether it is brushing the teeth, whether it is taking a bath, right? Because you will not know when the child will be big enough to start using it himself. Always offer to the child to do it. The child may not do it, but will take his own time. So, both the things. So, engage the child in the work that you are doing in. Truly believe that the child has capability to engage in that, Filiona. So, and do not think that as a parent, your responsibility is to always keep your child stimulated. So that is where the child starts noticing that there are passive entertainment as well. There are inherent, there is a love in doing things which have inherent reward built in. When you have folded four of your t-shirts, you put it, and the mom looks, with a smile and, wow, wonderful. Come, I'll give you 4 stars. Go get the paper, go get the pen. And you give 4 stars in his hand. How interactive it is. So every such moments you can use it as a learning thing. We sometimes think that we have to do sit down activity to tease the child. All the interactions can become a learning thing. So except those moments where I said, which you need complete concentration to do, you just cannot have the child around. Truly believe that your child can be around in everything that you're doing. So I really hope it helps you to, fit in that how to keep my child stimulated, because children need problems to solve. Young children need problems to solve. These become natural problems to solve.
Mhm. Right. Right. So on the same lines, Rohini, who is from Pune and has a 3-year-old child, says, "My daughter is 3 years old. She
Hmm.
has a brother who's 8 years of age. Seeing her brother, she also started watching TV for hours together. Never has she taken food without rhymes or YouTube videos. I even tried leaving her without food for half a day just to resist her from the screen, and she
Hmm.
did not even ask for food the whole day or even had a spoon of food
Hmm.
until I did not give her mobile to watch videos. She behaves extremely rudely if I take off the mobile and starts crying. I don't know what to do. I have even bought and kept all her favorite toys for her to play. She plays with the toys only for half an hour or so, and the rest of the hours she is addicted to the TV or to the mobile. What can I do in that case?"
Hmm. Hmm. I understand. See, in the previous case, we were talking about a 5 year plus child. 3 years is a little younger age. Generally, 3-year-old children wouldn't have, holding power to stick to one activity for relatively longer time. And a 3-year-old would be, attention span could be anywhere between 5 minutes to maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So most of the time, the child would need some kind of, would need an adult to engage with and to interact with, because that is also the time where the child's social and emotional skills and understanding of the world is increasing. So the child would need, we cannot just leave it on the child to, in a self-drive manner, just play with the toys mindlessly for a 3-year-old child, or even in the way that it is supposed to play with. The children can be distractible. Now, there are a couple of things here. If the older brother is watching TV, it becomes tough um, to take the 3-year-old child away as well. It will be very artificial if you ask me, right? And then, of course, the content which a 8-year-old will watch, I will also be worried about that the content that a 8-year-old will watch and the content which is suitable for a 3-year-old, it can be way different. So it becomes highly passive for a 3-year-old child who can't really connect the dots in terms of the story plot which is going on. And because that is also an age where the child is building language, okay, so the child can learn words, because this also becomes an alternative source of teacher for for the child. If the child is spending, like 3-year-old ideally shouldn't be spending more than an hour, or a little here and there, shouldn't be spending more than that in a day, because it takes away the child's time to do other activities. So I do see a challenge here if the TV is going on. So how do you may have to see that, how do you overall work it out in the family where the TV is on for a lesser amount of time. Okay, that's one. Of course, there are families where grandparents are there and where they are watching something, but what they watch a lot of times do not attract young children's attention. But what an 8-year-old will be watching has the potential to attract a 3-year-old's attention. So being sensitive about that. Now, the other thing that you mentioned about was to test, whether the child will, from her own accord, come and tell you that, Mom, I'm really hungry now, give me some food, right? I would put it in the bracket of dropping the expectations. Young children who are still building verbal and who are still building the sense of body, a lot of time would actually show where the child has not slept enough or has not eaten enough, will actually show, or is not connected, right, has not connected with the person for a longer time, would show it in a little different manner, right? She wouldn't really verbally come and tell you that, okay, I need food. The person can actually show it more as a meltdown or tantrum or overall fidgetiness or overstimulation, running around too much and all. So we got to be sensitive that if she's not, if she has skipped one particular meal, then how do you help without dropping the expectation? How do you help her to guide that? You know what? This is a food time now, so we need to eat the food, and then only we will watch it. So how do you help the child to get this? Will be important. And of course, because based on how she has developed her defenses and coping, she is bound to cry, she is bound to throw fits. For a 3-year-old child, I would never suggest to take it as she's rude, to put it in this category, because she's still learning communication. So please avoid taking personally on yourself in terms of as a respect question, or as a terms of you are too rude, because she's still learning. She is only mimicking what she could be watching the 8-year-old respond, or in the TV respond, or some other adults in the house respond. She's just mimicking. She's still in the process of building her own way. So do not take it as rude, because the moment you will take it as rude, your reaction will change. Right? From concern for her, your reaction will change in your own, it will not be a response anymore, because your own triggers will start, your own flooding will start. How dare a 3-year-old child talk to me like that? Even when she's all limbic, she's throwing things around, she still needs your help, right? So even timeouts for this age aren't going to help her. She's just going to, have the meltdown till the time she's really tired, and she doesn't learn anything from there. So when she is actually crying or she's having a meltdown, she needs an adult with her at that time, closer. But then the adult needs to keep, you need to keep, if you are the adult with your crying child, you need to keep yourself safe. Okay, you cannot allow your child, you should truly believe that your child, when she's having a meltdown, is capable, okay, of scratching you, is capable of looking for opportunities to bite you, is capable of spitting on you, all the ways that she might have, or kicking you with the legs, all the ways that she might have thought that, okay, all limbic is what we generally say, that going all limbic, where the rational mind is not working. In any case, they do not have so many connection between rational mind and limbic mind. So the child has completely, as we say, the flip is opened. Right? So you have to give it time. You have to be around the child, keeping yourself safe and the child safe, whether holding it, whether calmly talking to the child, and waiting for it to ebb down. Resist from giving quick distractions or quick, all right, just do it for 5 minutes, because all these things for a younger child validates the behavior. Right? For a young child of 3 years old, it is more about action and reaction. So it's about, I acted this way and I got it. because it's learning by getting the social cues. So it's a very difficult learning, because the next time when you probably are you have more energy, so you may say, no, today I will not give her at all, then she will have longer time of meltdown, right? So if you can help her to, if you can be calm when she has the meltdown and crying spell, but be with her, not disconnect with her at the time, right? So when she sees you, it's like that. She goes up, 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 and she goes down, and she sees you standing right there to catch her, right? Then she sees you as, that this guy knows something, that it's okay for me when I am completely shaky. This guy is in control. She's going to get that sense of safety and connect from you. And that will help her to be able to take your instructions much more. But then, of course, 3 years old, she's going to go through it for a few weeks before actually the new behavior comes in. So I really hope these tips help you. But please don't test the child. This is not the age to test the child.
Right. So, Prayank Bisht, who has 11-year and 8-year child respectively, says my 11-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter keeps on playing games on their laptops even when their classes are on. The moment we go into a different room, they start playing again. They make excuses that it's screen break, teacher got disconnected, and so on. We can't keep an eye on them all the time. Please give us some tips to deal with this problem and make them intrinsically motivated to study.
Right. See, Prayag, a lot of times we keep the real life and the screen life in silos. They are not talking to each other. Now, just imagine what happens if in real life the child has carried a comic, okay, in the school. All we have to do is look back to our own childhood to think about it. So if the child has carried a comic to the school and is putting that comic in the textbook, right, and is reading it during the class hours, and the teacher sees it, okay, most probably the teacher will just confiscate it and put it away, okay, and then will say that probably you'll get it in PTA meeting, or will not get it at all, and the child follows up, but the parents follow up, and probably the child gets it back, but then child learns the lesson. So whatever is in the real life, also those same rules apply. That is, how is it touching on the best interest of the child? How is it touching upon to the child that it's not good for me? Not by verbal, where you are telling. Of course, you try telling once, twice. That's it. Somewhere the words can't be extended much further. Otherwise, they lose their value. The words without actions lose their value. So if you can, firstly, never club 8-year-old and 10-year-old child by saying, you guys do it. Because if you make a cartel around it, then it becomes you versus the children. Right? You can't, be in this role. You have to take it individually, the 8-year-old child separately, 10-year-old child separately. So if you see your 8-year-old child is onto the screen, not that you're always spying, but when you see, you can actually then guide the child that, what, during school times we do not do it. So can you please close the screen, and whatever is a chapter which is being taught, you do your self-study and then show it to me what you have understood. So it touches upon the best interest of the child. But the question which will come out here is, are you ready to let the child skip the class? Or if the child goes into the meltdown, because the child is always going to go to his or her default behavior. The child says, all right, I will not attend any classes today. Are you ready to pay those prices and truly convey to the child that following rules for you in the calmest manner, not challenging manner, in the calmest possible manner, with a smile if possible, with an understanding smile where you are closer to the child. Sometimes what happens, Nidhi, when there is a conflict, we go away from the child. We are speaking right on the door and the child is inside. If you go closer to the child, we convey to the child, it's all right what you're feeling, but I know a thing or two. right? So if you go closer to the child and you say, you know what, I do understand that you're finding, do not drop your expectations. So the moment we say, all right, don't attend the classes, it'll be your loss only. Children are very good at taking challenges because they are inherent problem solvers, right? Their brain is so fresh, all the nerve connections are getting away. So do not challenge on the things which you don't want the child to do. If you don't want the child not to attend the classes, you should never challenge the child in those lines, right? You don't mean it. So what you need, and you really want the child to take your words seriously. So what that means is that, yeah, that's very unfortunate if you think that screen time, if the screen time for entertainment is there, only then you can attend the classes. I can see it's tough for you. Let me know if you need any of my help here, and calmly let the child handle it. So, and follow up when the child says, okay, I'm so sorry, okay, I'm done. Be calm with all the other interaction. When it's a time for the child to go out to play, let the child go out and play. I wouldn't say let the child pay double prices for the same crime. So don't think. Sometimes as a parent, we think, let us use all the ammunitions on the child. No eating till you finish the chapter, no playing till you do it. We have to understand eating, playing, sleeping, everything is important for the child. So it is not like, it's not like we are playing some kind of, okay, I will hold on to this till you do it. Of course, you can hold on to things which are luxury in nature, which could be extra screen time, which could be buying something which in your opinion is a want and not a need. Keep those things. Basic things you cannot hold as hostage for the child. So keep your interaction, because your connection will finally help the child to come back. Do not hold on to your love that till the time the child is not behaving, I have to stay disconnected, because your disconnect will make it difficult for the child to get back. So I hope it helps.
It indeed does. So, Kiran, can we also do a quick recap of the key steps which parents need to understand better and help them moderate screen time for their child?
Right. So I think the most important thing, Nidhi, is that truly not seeing screen time as a villain. Screen time for entertainment is what I said. Not to see it as a villain, that and not to say that, okay, since the time you are having on devices, not to keep putting that kind, not to use that as a nagging kind of thing, but truly believing that the child needs a balanced, right, balance growing up in all the areas based on the age of the child, then supporting the child to achieve that. So that is one part. Secondly, do not feel inadequate if you do not understand the devices completely. Sit with the child. Sometimes you can even join with what the child is doing on the screen, watch what the child is doing, understand, okay, and truly believe that whatever is going on the screen, are you okay? If the child starts doing those things, right, or start using that language, especially for the children who are below 10 years, in real life, because that's what the child is going to do. So truly joining the child, understanding the devices much more, not feeling handicapped that I don't understand it at all, okay, and not letting that decide whether you will put the rules or you will not put the rule. Okay, and the third thing is, do not drop your expectations ever by testing the child, that let me see how long will he keep doing it or she keep doing it. You can't test the child in this, because the devices are created. The moment you start testing the child, you have to understand that what you are actually doing it is, you are putting your child up, right, to compete with all the best of the brains in the industry who are creating those apps and the softwares. A child who is still learning self control and regulation, you are expecting the child to take those decisions, when so far you're not even started completely allowing your child to take decision of having a night over or not having a night over at friend's place. So this is an important decision as well. So you need to truly believe that as a parent, you need to help the child, guide the child, right? So I really hope this helps. And wherever you notice that you're regularly getting into physical fights, you're regularly ending up feeling guilty about how you handled, please reach out for help, right? Do not give up on the child, because children are plastic. They really want to connect with the parents. no matter what is the age. Even if you see that, wow, the child is 15 years old, 16 years old, the child is completely independent, child still wants to connect with you. So please help the child. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kiran, and everyone else for joining in.